Right out of the box, you can tell by the build quality that it's an Apple product. It has a solid aluminium body and really nicely defined edges. As it is with the majority of Apple products, people don't mind spending extra due to just how good the design and build quality is. This is the base model right here, which runs for about 1,500 Aussie dollars, and so far it's been reliable and really fun to use. I edit my videos on a Mac, and I've had iPhones over the years that all have been really great, and this MacBook Pro is no different. I really enjoy the Apple ecosystem and just how well the devices work, not just standalone, but together as well. One of the largest drawbacks of choosing a MacBook over other laptops out there is the number of ports, or lack thereof. The screen is a 13.3-inch IPS LCD display with a resolution of 2560 by 1600, giving it a DPI of 227. It also gets very bright with a 500 nit display and super accurate color representation. The display is covered with glass, making it a bit of a fingerprint magnet, but it is quite resistant to scratching. So there's two USB Type-C ports on the far left. You can charge in either one, and that's all there is. So yes, you'll need to buy some dongles if you need to download video files from an SD card or plug in a USB Type-A device like an external hard drive. MacBook Pros are really well suited for on-the-go video editing because they have the power to handle any kind of video editing software with no problems at all. Final Cut Pro has its benefits because it's so well optimized for macOS, but personally I use Adobe Premiere and really enjoy the workflow it provides. The keyboard has Butterfly Series 2 switches that have a very low key travel and definitely takes some getting used to if you're coming from a mechanical keyboard or any other keyboard really. I found the keyboard really easy to begin with, and it was really comfortable after hours of typing. The keys have this nice tactile feel to them as well. The speaker setup is a big improvement on previous models, with stereo speakers that boast a high dynamic range. I noticed a huge improvement in sound quality when comparing it with my older MacBook Air. So here's the comparison. So here's the MacBook Air speakers. And now the MacBook Pro speakers. Having only two USB-C ports is somewhat limiting, especially for content creators. I would much prefer an SD card slot and one USB-C port with an additional USB Type-A port. Just like the move to wireless headphones, the same is happening for laptops with fewer and fewer ports, and that's fine. It just means that you need additional dongles, but I would have much preferred as an Apple user to have them built into the laptop already, and a lot of people I know share the same opinion. I find it interesting that the MacBook Pro has kept a headphone jack, but quite a number of Apple iPhones from the iPhone 7 onwards don't have a headphone jack at all. The trackpad, on the other hand, is one of the standout features of the MacBook Pro, and it's one of the best trackpads available on a laptop right now. It's really smooth, and the haptic engine gives it a mechanical feel, even though it's quite a simplistic design. With a single piece of glass situated on top of a motor, it's one of the most responsive trackpads I've come across. Battery life is impressive with up to 10 hours wireless web browsing and movie playback time. Keeping the screen brightness set at around 50% should see you out the whole day without needing to recharge, which is excellent. There is a 54.5 watt hour lithium polymer battery built in, and the charging cable is a 61 watt USB-C cable connected to a power adapter. A minor downside to this charging setup is that if you trip over the cable for whatever reason, you end up with the laptop on the floor and quite possibly damaged. I would much prefer the MagSafe cable setup that the older MacBooks had, because you never had to worry about this issue. Instead, the cable would just come straight off and no harm done to your laptop. If you're doing video editing, the battery life is cut in half to around 5 to 6 hours, at least with the base model, and that models with the touch bar have 1 to 2 hours more battery life with this same task. Hard drive storage is fairly limited on the base model with 128 gigs, which might not be enough for most people, especially if you have a lot of video files that you like to keep on your computer. This is where you'll likely need an external drive or USB storage to solve this issue, because upgrading to the 256 gig model MacBook will cost you $300 or more. Performance of the MacBook Pro is decent, and this is the i5 base model with 8 gigs of RAM. It performs well against similar 13-inch laptops spec'd higher, including the HP Spectre and the Dell XPS 13. The fan for the MacBook Pro really only turns on during video editing or video calling with extras running in the background, but general use is pretty much silent and you don't hear it kick in very often. A question on a lot of people's minds is about the touch bar add-on and if it's worth the extra money. After comparing the touch bar models in an Apple store, I have to admit that the OLED screen is a nice addition, but other than that, I don't see it as being all that viable. It wasn't incredibly versatile, and you can really only use it if you're looking directly down onto the keyboard, so it's not practical for situations such as lying down or reclined back on your couch. It did have some shortcuts for apps specific to Apple. For the extra $300 though, I don't think it's worth it. I was a little disappointed with the front-facing camera for FaceTime and video calling. It's only a 720p camera and the video quality is subpar. The audio, however, was decent due to the 2 inbuilt microphones it has. When you're paying this much for a laptop, the least Apple could do is include a 1080p camera, but that's just my opinion. So this is a test of the MacBook Pro's inbuilt camera, and as you can tell, the video quality isn't that great, but the audio isn't too bad because of the 2 inbuilt microphones, as I mentioned. Probably would expect something a little better given the price of this laptop, but it's not horrible. To revisit what I liked about the MacBook Pro, the Retina Display is really nice with bright, vibrant colors and accurate color reproduction. The keyboard is comfortable to use and the trackpad is one of the best I've seen on a laptop. The speakers are high quality, especially when comparing it to older models. The battery life is impressive as well, having all-day use for general tasks and 4 to 5 hours of video editing. The not so great parts are the camera, the price, the number of ports, and the charging cable. Despite paying around $1,500 for this device, I think the good outweighs the bad though with this MacBook. It's a really well designed laptop. It's functional and practical for video editing, making it a perfect candidate for someone who travels a lot or needs a super portable laptop that can handle anything you throw at it. Now don't get me wrong, this type of laptop isn't for everyone. If you're a student and only use a laptop for typing up documents and emailing and taking notes in lectures, you can pick up a cheap laptop to do that no problem at all. This laptop isn't really suited for students because of the high price tag. For people like myself who sometimes need to edit outside of the studio, this makes a great setup. Or you might be like some people I know who run Windows on a Mac through Parallels or virtually. There will be a link to the MacBook Pro in the description below so you can check it out for yourself. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to stay tuned for more tech videos in the future. See you in the next one.